Now, more than ever, when every dollar of your rental income matters most, shortening the time between the tenant moving out and a new tenant moving in is one of the most important things that you can do as a property owner or a property manager. Even when renting a property during times of prosperity and a healthy economy, shortening this time frame or minimizing the vacancy is going to help you maximize your return on your investment. But how do you possibly minimize vacancy at your rental property in the midst of a pandemic? The key is utilizing contactless virtual leasing, or to utilize a tech-forward property management company who can create virtual leasing strategy made just for you. Whatever you ultimately decide, there are easy steps that you can take to lower your property's vacancy through virtual leasing.
In the first video, we will cover steps 1 and steps 2, where you will learn how to get your property leased. In step 1, we're going to talk about pre-leasing strategies to get your unit leased before the current tenant moves out. And in step 2, we're going to talk about some expert tips on advertising your property for maximum viewings. So what would you say when you're getting your property rent ready? What are some pre-leasing strategies that you can do to help increase the occupancy of the property?
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea to kind of talk about pre-leasing and why that's so important. So pre-leasing really, as you say, minimizes that time that a unit is vacant. So before a unit is vacant and is ready to have someone to move in, you're already leasing it, so you start to get those leads ready. And one of the ways that you can do that is have amazing assets to work with. So video, a property management company that does this very well will already have, files of like images of your property, 3D tours, maps, and they can start putting and advertising it out there and get that motion going.
And are you seeing 3D and virtual tours? Is that something that a lot of people are starting to go towards now?
Yeah, there are some stats out there that show the highest percentage of that makes a resident rent property is because for visuals like images and 3D tours, videos. Those are 1,000 images, and so you're really able to give that prospective resident a sense of their potential home before they actually go there, because it's a lot of commitment to have someone be like, all right, I'm going to go and visit your home. But if you were to give them a taste of that beforehand, they're more willing to, make that decision. They won't be wasting your time. They're not going to be wasting time. So it's definitely a trend that is increasing. Great pictures and having as many visuals as possible.
And when you pre-lease a property, essentially what you're doing is you're getting the property leased before it's even vacant. So you could, in theory, have a 0 vacancy day, because right when the tenant moves out, depending on the condition and getting it rent ready, you can have another tenant right there ready to go, which will basically, hopefully, cause you to lose 0 rental income for your property. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's not always easy to do because, sometimes you're not able to get the photos or whatnot. Not every property manager even does it. Some property managers, they don't pre-lease at all. I know here at Mynd, we do offer that when we can. So it's always good to know, because every single day that you have a unit, vacant is a lot of money. It's almost sometimes more losses than if you, are renting a little bit below market. So you got to minimize that time.
Yeah. Now, so speaking of that, that leads me to the next step, step number 2, which is minimizing the vacancy. One of the things I think investors really need to remember is that, as you said, every day that your property is vacant, you're losing money. So minimizing that and doing all the steps before it becomes vacant is really key. And what would you say are some key things that people can do to actually minimize that vacancy timeframe?
Yeah, I think that pre-leasing is one of them. Another step to minimize that time is to make sure that you're advertising the right way. So number 1 is making sure you have all of your product listings written, they're optimized, great pictures, having all that asset, and then go ahead and actually advertise. And you would want to advertise across a lot of different channels, as fast as possible. This is very difficult to do because a lot of the platforms are not, you don't do it all in one place. You do it in all the different places. So I would say make sure you're ready to advertise and have all your assets and advertise in a lot of different platforms and locations. A tech-forward property management company will use technology to syndicate, and what that really means is, you're able to have your assets in one place, and they can easily push it out to a lot of different platforms. There's probably about 40 different platforms that you can advertise your property in a very easy way. And if you do this manually, it will take a very, very long time. And as you know, time is money. So you always want to look for, a technology-driven solution on that front.
Yeah, and the key when you have a vacant property really is to get as many eyeballs as possible looking at the property so that you have the opportunity to at least let them see the property. And that's what Mynd does a very good job of, being able to syndicate it out onto multiple platforms. So it's not just one that they're seeing it, you're actually getting it out there for multiple eyeballs to look at, and then you can make the decision. Now, where do you think is the best place to advertise the rental listings?
Yeah, so there's a lot. Sometimes it's market, specific. I know here in California, Craigslist is really big. Craigslist is big in a couple different markets. So there's 40 different sites, and some of those sites are Zillow, Zumper, Redfin, Apartments.com. There's a big long list of them, but yeah, I would say there's about 40 different sites that are available for you to syndicate against.
Yeah, and I think what's important here is that just because it works in one market, it doesn't mean that it works in another market. And with Mynd being in so many different markets, we know what works maybe in Atlanta that may not work in Phoenix or in Houston or in Sacramento. And so that's why it's important to make sure that when you're marketing your property, you're putting it on the right platform that people can see it. Because just because it's on Craigslist, if nobody uses Craigslist in a certain area, it's not going to help you. And that's why it's key to make sure that whoever you partner with, a company like Mynd, you make sure that you know that they have the assets in place to get your property rented. Because that's what this is, having a great property, having it rent ready, doing all these things. If nobody can see it, it's not going to matter. And that's why this is so, so important.
Oh, it's like, that's exactly right. The more eyeballs you have, then the more chances, because not every single eyeball is going to turn into a tenant, right? There will be fall off. So you want to have that web, you want to cast your web really wide and have a lot of eyeballs so that when they start, coming in and falling out, like the more people you have going through the funnel, the better. And having, a partner in the market that really understand what works already, so that you're not, spending time on this platform or spending money on another advertising platform. You already know what works. And especially if you have rental property in multiple markets, it's very difficult to be a market expert everywhere. So having a partner that is in all these different locations and really understand what works in those locations is very key.
In this video, we covered pre-leasing tips and advertising strategies in order to minimize vacancy time in your rental property. Tune into our next video to learn more about the leasing process, specifically virtual tours and self-showings. If you want to learn more, go to our website at www.mynd.co. That's MYND.co. Thank you.